There were 48 teams at the 2026 FIFA World Cup, and every single one had at least one black player. Every single one, except Argentina. When that observation went viral in June 2026, the most common response from Argentines was that they never had black people. But that statement is not true, and that's what this video is about. You see, in 1778, approximately 37% of Argentina's population was black. In some Argentine cities, Africans made up close to half the population. And the distance between 37% and zero is not a demographic chance. It is a deliberate, documented, two-century government program to erase one of South America's largest black populations from the map. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you how they did it, who planned it, and why the three excuses Argentina still uses today fall apart the moment you open the historical records. So let's start at the beginning. The slave trade reached Argentina the same way it reached Brazil, Cuba, Haiti, and Jamaica. Between 1680 and 1812, well over 100,000 enslaved Africans were shipped to the region around Buenos Aires, most of them from Congo and Angola. They worked the giant cattle ranches, they worked as servants in homes, and they loaded ships on the docks of Buenos Aires, and their numbers changed the whole country. By the late 1700s, Buenos Aires was a city where roughly 1 in 3 people was black or mixed race. Some inner provinces were close to half, and by 1800, more than a third of the entire nation was black. The most damning fact is that Argentina didn't just erase human beings. It also stole what they created. The biggest example is the thing Argentina is most famous for in the entire world, and it's not Messi, it's called tango. Tango was created by enslaved Africans in Buenos Aires, and the proof is hiding right inside the word. Tango comes from Kikongo, the language of the old kingdom of Congo. Those same Africans created candombe, from a Bantu phrase meaning to pray to the gods, and candombe halls were where black Argentines gathered to drum, dance, and hold on to the cultures they were stolen from. One art historian, Robert Ferris Thompson, even traced the tango's steps to the Congo word entang, meaning sun, because the sun's path across the sky inspired the movement. And Carlos Gardel, the man most Argentines credit for making tango great, learned from a black Argentine composer named Gabino Ezeiza. That part got buried on purpose, but here's the detail that tells you everything. Argentina didn't even accept tango until it traveled to Paris and Europeans applauded it. Only then did Argentina claim it. So the country rejected African culture at home, waited for Europe to approve it, and then took the credit while erasing the people who made it. Keep that pattern in mind because it's about to repeat on a much bigger scale. Here's how the erasure actually worked. Slavery ended in most of Argentina in 1853, and even after that, about a third of the country was still black. Argentina's leaders looked at that number and made a decision, and 2 men led the way. The first was Juan Bautista Alberti, a political philosopher who coined the phrase that became national policy. To govern is to populate, and by populate he meant Europeans. Argentina's 1853 constitution, the same document that ended slavery, included a rule encouraging unlimited European immigration, and the government didn't just open the door, it paid for the boats. It handed out land and rewards designed specifically to attract white settlers, and between 1880 and 1930, more than 2 million Italians alone arrived. By 1914, 3 out of every 10 people in Argentina were foreign-born. So picture this clearly, the same government that refused healthcare to black Argentines was buying ship tickets for Italians to come replace them. The second man said the quiet part out loud. Domingo Faustino Sarmiento, who became president in 1868, had already written a famous book arguing that Argentina was backward because it was mixed race, and that becoming civilized meant becoming European. In his private diary, he wrote about black people as a problem to be gotten rid of, calling slavery a parasite attached to the tree of freedom. That man became president, and he turned his beliefs into policy. Black Argentines were pushed into segregated neighborhoods with no healthcare and broken infrastructure, and their men were forced into the deadliest frontline positions in Argentina's wars. It worked so well that in 1875, 1 year after Sarmiento left office, the government simply stopped counting African descendants in the census at all. And honestly, you cannot erase a people more completely than by refusing to admit they exist. As I said earlier, Argentina has offered 3 explanations for where all those people went, so let's test each one against the records. Explanation 1 says the wars killed the black men. Argentina did fight brutal wars in the 1800s, and black men really were thrown into the most dangerous positions. But the math doesn't work. Historian George Reed Andrews dug into the military records, and in 1829, one Afro-Argentine unit, the 4th Cazadores, recorded 31 soldiers dead and 802 deserted. Read those numbers again. The men were not all dying. Most of them were surviving, deserting, and slipping away into the countryside and across borders. So the wars thinned the community, but they cannot explain a third of a nation vanishing. Explanation 2 blames disease, pointing to the terrible yellow fever outbreak that hit Buenos Aires in 1871. The epidemic was real, and it did hit black neighborhoods hardest. But ask yourself why. Wealthy white residents fled the city, while black Argentines were trapped by poverty and segregation in crowded districts with no health care, left behind to face the fever. The disease didn't randomly find black Argentina. Government neglect aimed it there. And even then, an epidemic kills thousands, not an entire population. Explanation 3 is the quietest and the most revealing. It says black Argentines simply mixed into the general population and faded away. And this is where the census becomes a weapon. As European immigrants flooded in, mixed-race Argentines were slowly relabeled in official records, shifted into vague categories, counted as white, until the state stopped counting them at all. People did not stop being of African descent. The paperwork just stopped saying so. And when a government dilutes a population on purpose and then deletes the very category that describes them, their disappearance is not a mystery. It is a filing system. Now I know what you might be thinking, why single out Argentina? South Korea's squad has few black players too, and so do Japan and Croatia, right? Well, the answer is in the starting point. Those countries never had a large black population that was then erased. Argentina did, and it was 37% of the country. So the real question is not why Argentina doesn't look like South Korea, it's why Argentina doesn't look like Brazil. Brazil was colonized under the same system, imported even more enslaved Africans, and shares the same continent and climate. Yet today, 56% of Brazilians identify as black or mixed race, and Brazil's World Cup squads have always been famously diverse. The difference is the choice Argentina made in 1853. Argentina chose to become white. Brazil, with all of its own racism and inequality, became something else, and a World Cup squad is the most visible scorecard of which country made which choice. But here's the part of this story that refuses to end the way Sarmiento planned. The Afro-Argentine community still exists. Groups like Diafar in Buenos Aires are fighting for recognition, representation, and an end to the national amnesia, and Afro-Argentine artists, academics, and families have been telling this story for decades. The only thing that changed in 2026 is that 48 football squads made their argument visible to the whole planet in 90 minutes, because that's what the squad really is, a confession. The government of 1875 stopped counting black Argentines. The government of 2026 doesn't need to, because on paper they're already gone. Except they're not. They are still here, insisting on their existence in a country that says they were never there at all. So let us know in the comments, did you know the history of Afro-Argentines before this video? And what do you think about the fact that tango, one of the most recognizable art forms on earth, was created by enslaved Africans and credited to European Argentina? Be sure to subscribe to this channel for more stories like this.